Hi, this is the recording. Whoops, let me get to the right spot. This is the recording for Friday, April 17th, and this is day 2 of your slides. So I'm going to take you through just the introduction to the slides. So let me give you just a little reminder of what you're doing. Today, what you're doing is you're going into the cell organelle slide. Okay. Hopefully, yesterday you went through all this beginning stuff, right? So we should be going down to where this interesting stretcher guy is, K12. And here we should be starting with day 2 at 13, okay? So we're going to go through a couple different organelles today and fill in the chart. So if you remember, as you're listening and doing this on the Google Slides, you're going to go to the chart, right? Which is right here, organelle chart. And you're going to go and fill in just the blue stuff today. So we're going to fill in these 3 things plus 2 blue questions, okay? And you can stop this video at any time to fill those in on your chart, but that's what you're doing today. Okay, let's start day 2. So day 2, there's going to be a couple organelles that we're going to be talking about that we're adding to the cell. So on day 1, we talked about the cell membrane, which is an organelle, right? Little baby organs inside the cells. We talked about the nucleus. We talked about cytoplasm and the mighty mitochondria, okay? Today we're going to be talking about 3 organelle parts that are also in plant and animal cells. So hint, they're in both, okay? And they kind of have funky names and they're a little trickier. So make sure you take your time to listen to this video well. Okay, here we go. Day 2. So the first kind of organelle that we're going to talk about that's also an organelle in the cell is what we call the ER, like an emergency room. But its fancier name is endoplasmic reticulum. Say that with me. Endoplasmic reticulum, okay? Or ER for short. And if I think about an ER, I think especially now, I think about a really crazy place, right? People running all over trying to help people that are sick or that are injured. Maybe they're pushing carts or beds or things like that. It's kind of a busy place, right? And if you're in the ER, you probably start in the waiting room and then you go to another room and they try to transfer you quickly somewhere else. So I think of kind of a place where you get transported and moved around a lot. And the ER in the cell is exactly like that. It's an organelle that produces, processes, and then transports materials around the cell. And if you take a look at it, the endoplasmic reticulum is always hugged around the nucleus. Oh, they're hugging. So if you take a look at it, it kind of looks like little membrane sacs, almost like coral or something you'd see under the sea, and it's hugging the nucleus. So I found the nucleus, this is purple thing right here, right? The endoplasmic reticulum are all these sacs that go around it. Okay, so that's the ER. And the ER is like the transportation system of the cell. It basically takes things and produces, processes them, and then transports them to anywhere they have to go around the cell. So the ER is like the transportation of the cell, transportation system of the cell. Okay, and even though I put plant cell on here, the ER is actually in both. So if you notice, it's hugged around the nucleus in this picture, okay? And remember, you can tell it's the plant cell because it's square. But let's go to the next page. Here's the animal cell, right? You can tell because it's circular. Well, the endoplasmic reticulum, even though it's not hugging quite as closely, is pretty darn close to the nucleus. So first I find the nucleus, okay? And then I look for this kind of weird coral under the sea structure stuff. Almost kind of looks like organ pipes a little bit too that have been cut off. The endoplasmic reticulum. So that's this light blue stuff that's right here. Okay. And that's the ER in the animal cell. Okay. It does the same thing. It transports materials. Maybe you noticed that, especially in this one, you can tell in the picture better, that there are bumps on some of these and not bumps on some of the other ones. Well, this was both ER, but there is actually 2 parts to the ER or the endoplasmic reticulum. The part with bumps on it is called the rough ER. Geez, kind of like if you had a speed bump, right? It's going to be a little bumpy of a ride. So the rough ER has the dots on it. And then what do you think this one's called that doesn't have the dots on it? That one's called smooth ER. Okay, and basically the only difference, other than what they do, we're not going to get that complicated, but basically their difference is that the rough ER has bumps on it. The smooth ER doesn't have bumps on it. And these bumps have a certain name, and that's the next thing that we're going to talk about. These bumps that are found are called ribosomes. 6th graders generally talk about this and say ribosomes. They're not ribosomes, they're ribosomes. So say that with me. ribosomes. And these are found in plant and animal cells. And ribosomes aren't just the dotted structures on the ER, but they're also float freely all over the cell. So let's take a look at this picture here. We see a plant cell. We know it's a plant cell because it's box-like, right? Okay, I always start by looking for the nucleus. The nucleus is the giant circle. Okay, so here's the nucleus right here. Okay, and if I look really carefully, I can see the squiggles of the chromatin that are in here. Okay, we know that the ER always hugs the nucleus, right? So here it is. Oh, so cute, such good friends, right? So that's the ER. We notice that some of the ER has dots on it, so that's the rough ER, and doesn't have dots on it, smooth ER. So that's one place we find ribosomes, but we also find them just hanging out randomly, floating in the cell. Okay, that's what ribosomes are. Also, here's what ribosomes do. So you can see here again in the animal cell in this next slide that ribosomes are dotted on the rough ER, but they're also found all over, dots all over the cell, right? So they float freely. They're in two places, okay? That's a hint for your later question. So when you go down here and you get to this, here are two really easy questions that I just went over, okay? Nice. So let's go back. And the job of the ribosomes are to make proteins for the cell. So these little dots make proteins, essential building blocks for the cell, okay? So you can kind of think of them like the construction workers. They're busy all the time doing work and building things for the cell that are pretty important. Those are the ribosomes, okay? And then the last thing that we're going to talk about today, the last organelle is called the Golgi bodies. Don't these have unusual names? Golgi bodies. Sometimes they also call it the Golgi apparatus. Either way, look for Golgi, okay? Golgi kind of looks like, and sometimes it's easy to confuse with the ER, okay? Because the Golgi kind of looks the same, where it looks like it's an organ that's been cut off, like a plain instrument organ, like a piano, or it kind of looks like something under the sea, right? So if we take a look at our pictures here, we know this is the animal cell because it's circular, right? I found the circle, the nucleus. I found the ER that hugs around it. Here's these cute little beans. Those are called mitochondria, if you remember. And then over here, kind of towards the side, I see what are called the Golgi bodies, okay? And it just happens that in this picture and the next picture, they're both orange, okay? But they kind of look like noodles that you kind of flattened with your hand, right? That's the Golgi body. So here's the Golgi bodies in the animal cell. And then here's the plant cell, we know, because it's more square, right? It's like a box. And here we see these kind of it looks like little noodles that have been flattened, right? You can see kind of the inside are cut open. Those are Golgi bodies, okay? And the job of the Golgi bodies is basically to get and receive things and get them ready to send out of the cell. So it's almost kind of like a packaging department. If you're like a final stop in a warehouse, where if you were making products or making things in your warehouse or and you were getting them ready and building them, right? The Golgi bodies would kind of be the last step where they're checked. Okay, is that good? Is that good? Does that look good? Is there a sticker on it? Is it ready to go? Then they're packaged and sent and ready to be sent out of the cell. Okay, that's what the Golgi bodies do. And actually, because they get things ready to send out of the cell, you'll also kind of notice they're usually on towards the edge, towards the outside. So they're not as close to the nucleus because if you think about it, they're getting things ready to leave the cell. So it makes sense that that's where they would be located. Okay, and guess what? Just like that, guys, we are at the end of day 2. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.